Achieving a gorgeous grin from home isn't a total mystery with Bite Clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all of your sleuthing friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite Clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces. Plus, they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And each episode, our special guest will bring with him a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our very special guest is Isa Mazzei. Am I saying that right, Isa?
Yes, Mazzei. A little bit harder on the Z's, but
okay,
yeah.
Mazzei. Sorry.
Mazzei. Okay. No worries. It's a weird one.
So, Isa is a producer, screenwriter, author, and former sex worker. You know her as the writer of last year's festival hit and Netflix release, Cam. Last week, she released her memoir, Cam Girl, which is incredible. Thank you so much for joining us, Isa.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
You're excited. We're so excited. We're so happy that you're
literally Terry and I have been fangirling ever since Kayla emailed.
It's
oh my
so
gosh,
true.
Thank you.
We've been fangirling. I read your book and one day I cried. Like, I'm very excited.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy. I mean, I'm sorry that I made you cry, but also
no, like
it
was like a cathartic cry. It was like oh my god, she kind of like gets me in a way, kind of cathartic cry. So I appreciate that.
That's awesome.
But now that we're gushing about Cam Girl, for our listeners who don't know about it, can you tell us about your new book and what it's about?
Yeah, so Cam Girl came out 2 days ago. Crazy. It's a memoir. It's a funny and realistic depiction of the time that I spent as a cam girl. I sort of see it as kind of like a fun, it could be a standalone piece, but it's also a really fun companion to Cam and kind of will give listeners kind of an insight into what my experience as a cam girl was, not just kind of this horror movie version that we see in Cam.
Cool.
Yeah, like I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things that really struck me was how much of a companion piece it was, like you said, to Cam. Because I rewatched Cam this week to prepare, and I could see Demon 9 and Bomb Number 20 and some of the chat room people that you had included in Cam. And it's not the same, of course, but I could see where some of that inspiration came from, and it made Cam feel a little bit more biographical while also kind of being a fantastic work of horror fiction.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that was always where it came from. I really wanted to give people the kind of behind the scenes look of where some of these things were coming from in my real life and kind of how I translated them into metaphor and into genre for Cam.
I think that's one of the things that I really like about the horror genre is its ability to examine things and tackle subject matter that would either A, not be as you said, metaphorical, or like not be able to like really dig into themes in such an interesting way. And that's one of the things I really liked about Cam last year. It made my top 5 of last year's movies.
Thank you. That's so exciting.
Okay, so I was talking to Terry about this, and I really wanted to bring it up to you because you mentioned Neopets as your first exposure to porn, and I screamed because it was mine too.
No way!
I was like, Isa, we are the same. Like, I would tell people all the time, like, I would write Harry Potter fan fiction on message boards and, like, figure out, and I was like, I have to bring this up because, like, soul sisters, because, like, I was like, I had never met anyone else who had, like, that experience with Neopets, and I just wanted to bring that up because it was amazing.
Oh my god, I love that. And yeah, I mean, I think Neopets was probably a lot of people's, like, first sexual awakening, honestly, because it was the first place where, like, it was a site for kids, but you had message boards, and we were all like young teenagers kind of like talking to each other. And it was a crazy time.
So like, not to be the old fogey in the room, but what exactly is Neopets? Because I'm 38, so like my generation, like I when I hear Neopets, I think of Tamagotchi. So this whole thing is like different to me.
Okay, Neopets.
Yes.
It's a website where it's like, it's almost like Pokemon-esque more than Tamagotchi, where you have like your Neopet, and they were like quasi like based on animals in real life. There was like dolphins and like griffins, and you would take care of your Neopet, and you have to feed it and take care of it like a Tamagotchi, but you also could play games and get like avatars, and it was like this whole little world that was like it was fictional, but it was really cool. And then there was the message boards where you could like talk about Neopets, but actually like you just wrote like horny fan fiction.
It became like this really crazy like form of social media because you had a profile and you could interact with people and you could friend people and send them messages. And so it became, at least for me, I think the first time I ever really interacted with people online that I didn't know in real life. So it was like this exciting exploratory space.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like we would exchange like AIM usernames, and like that was like also the first time like I realized I could lie about who I was on the internet. Like I never catfished anyone, but like I would lie about my age, like the good old ASL, age, sex, location. Like I could lie about it. Instead of being 14, I could be 18, and like all that weird stuff that comes with being a young person online. Anyway, I wanted to bring that up first because it was just like a very hilarious and like relatable sentence. I know it was like a very brief part of the book, but like very relatable.
I'm so glad that you related to it. Honestly, that makes me so happy.
Going back to Cam Girl a bit, what would you say is the most important thing you learned through your experiences?
Like as a Cam Girl.
Like as Cam. Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing I learned was that it's okay to have boundaries and it's okay to be explicit about them. I think that's something like...
I'm working on that in my life.
It's hard.
It's really hard.
It's so hard. And I think growing up, especially, you know, in just my entire teenage existence, even pre-teenage existence, you know, as a woman, just so often feeling like my body didn't get to belong to me, you know, like it was objectified and catcalled and groped without my consent and stared at in the street. And camming was the first place where I really got to set boundaries and I really got to enforce them. And that was incredibly powerful. And I kind of learned through that, you know, a lot of lessons that I carry into my life now about really figuring out what I want and what I'm comfortable with and holding to that.
That's so, and I would actually wanted to ask you about something similar because you have boundaries, but it also felt like you were doing so much emotional labor for these strangers online, like the ones that you got really close to. And like, was that exhausting having to be like kind of the emotional outlet for a lot of these people?
I mean, I think it was exhausting, but I also saw it like that was my job, you know?
Okay.
So
yeah.
I think it was a lot of it was balancing, you know, in terms of things that I learned. I also just learned how to run a business. And a part of that business was taking care of my clients. And a part of that business was branding myself and social media promotion and marketing and graphic design and learning how to light photos and shoot video and all of that kind of wrapped up into this kind of massive undertaking that was, you know, one of the hardest jobs I've ever done.
That's so badass. Like,
That
I'm
really
like
is.
one woman show. It's what I mean. Like, I just don't think people ever give sex workers enough credit for like how much work they're actually doing behind the scenes. And like, you are a small business owner. You are an entrepreneur. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, how much time you said you spent buying props and like setting up your room. And it's like you said, it's a full-time job, and it's insane.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something I tried to bring into Cam too, was like, as much as I could, you know, the behind the scenes labor that goes into sex work, because, you know, it's so easy to look at a cam girl online and say, oh my God, she looks so pretty and it looks so effortless and it's just this flawless performance. And then, you know, you don't see just off screen like all the open packages and chaos of makeup and like sex toys and just everything that goes into that moment, so it looks so effortless.
You know, I'm glad you talk about that, because I saw Cam at the Telluride Horror Show last year, and I know you were there because you got on the stage, and I wanted to stay for your Q&A, but we had like another movie at the high school down like the road, and we had to like rush out to it. But it was really interesting sitting in the movie theater. I wasn't sure what I was going to get myself into watching it, but I was actually so enwrapped in like all the stuff that the character Lola had to do prior to even like getting on there, and all the research she was doing, and then you tackle that again in your book, like all of the like methodical stuff you have to do just to prepare for being online, and I thought that was really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was so important for me to bring into, again, both the book and also Cam the film, because I think that's something that really, really goes overlooked in most portrayals of sex workers that I've seen.
Yeah.
So we're like talking a lot about like the work that goes behind sex work, like the work that goes behind sex work, and like curating this personality that's you but not you. So like, what have you learned about your own identity and just like the concept of what is identity through being online as a sex worker? Like, it just seems like such a crazy thing to kind of navigate.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the most important lesson that I took away from all of that is that who we are online is absolutely not who we are in the real world. Yeah. And I think it's really easy to forget that. And I still do that myself when I see someone with like the perfect Instagram and the perfect story. And I'm like, oh my God, why are you so happy? I hate everything. And, and then I remember that, you know, for a long time, I was the always happy cam girl. And I'm sure my social media, I'm the always happy, you know, screenwriter, author that I am now. And I think that's a really important lesson, because these comparisons are really unhealthy. And I think that the more we can remember that everything digital that we create it's curated. It's a curated persona, no matter how real you try to be.
I completely agree, because I try to, my online persona on like Twitter and stuff is a lot more outgoing and gregarious than I am in person. I'm very socially awkward, and so like I'm thinking about all of these, like, people are like, you should come to this festival and we can hang out and stuff, and it just fills me with dread, because I'm not I'm not as like put together as I try to convey myself on Twitter, you know. So I think I that part really like struck with me, both with Cam and Cam Girl.
Totally. And I think there's a moment actually in the book where I meet someone that's like that too, where like they were so gregarious and bold and almost crass in my cam room, and then I met them in real life and they were like super shy and quiet, and it was such an interesting moment, but it also showed me just how, as much as we like to hate on the internet, just how powerful and beautiful the internet can be. Because it is a space where we can express parts of ourselves that maybe we are too anxious or just don't feel comfortable expressing in other ways.
Well, and before I was out in real life, I was out online, because like it felt removed. It felt, you know, that the people that was there, that I knew that if they didn't accept me for who I was, that I could just, you know, block them or move away from them and like not engage with them. And like in the real world, it was a little bit, I'm living in the center of the country. I'm in Nebraska, so it's a little bit, it was a little bit scarier to do that in real life. So being online allowed me to explore that kind of online sexuality and like the ability to be myself, which is really freeing.
Totally. And I think, that's why, a lot of questions I get asked after Cam coming out is like, well, do you think the internet is bad? Should we not be creating these digital identities? And I'm like, absolutely not. Yeah. Like, the internet is this incredible place where we can build community. It's just important to recognize that it's also not the real world.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up building community because, like, towards the end of your book, like, you do talk about, like, you built a community in your cam room, which is so fascinating. Like, people were friends with each other and would talk and, like, were so familiar with each other. And, like, there is an importance of finding a community, even if it's in a cam room. Like, these people did find friends in, like, a strange way. And, like, I have found a lot of my good friends are from the internet. Like, there is an importance to that kind of thing, as long as you kind of can differentiate between, like, what is your real self and what is your not real self.
Yeah, totally. And I remember, like, days I would take sick days and my viewers would kind of, like, miss each other, which was wonderful. And I would sign on a couple of days later, I'd be like, oh, sorry guys, I was so sick. And they'd be like, yeah, whatever, glad you're better. But, like, holy shit, dude, what's up? How was your Thursday? Like, I haven't seen you in forever.
So nice.
And, it was really cool to have a space where I could bring people together who kind of had things in common. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's like, I feel like people don't think about that. I guess it's like, there's, like, the whole side where it's like, oh, it's all creepy, gross men. But I feel like you give them more nuance and, like, personality. Like, obviously there are some, like, very weird things happening, but you give them, like you knew them. There's more depth to them as people rather than just, like, a faceless avatar who, like, sits on campsites.
Totally. And, I really wanted to bring that part to light too, because I think, just like the stigmatization of sex workers is really dangerous and untrue. So too is the stigma we place on people who consume sex work. We tend to write them off as one type of person, and that's absolutely not true.
Yeah, I remember being in college, and it was when I was in college, it was like, I think I started college in 1999, 2000. So, like, it was the first time that I was away from home. I had a computer because this college I went to provided computers for everyone. And it was my first real computer and my first real experience of being online. And I remember visiting campsites for cam boys that, like, and it was such an interesting, I guess it was a little later than Sexual Awakening, but it was an interesting way of experiencing again, my sexuality in, like, a safe, controlled space.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, there was, in fact, a girl in my cam room who was doing something very similar to that. And It was really wonderful to be able to be a space where she could kind of interact with another queer woman and ask questions. And it can be a really, really, really beautiful space for things like that.
Yeah.
And so we talked a lot about, like, your experience as a sex worker, but I also wanted to talk about the beginning of the book where you talk about being, like, a teenager, and a lot of the way you talk about being a teenager really kind of hit me, because a lot of the way you talk about, especially how your relationship with men was, like, you put into words a lot of things that I have never been able to put into words about myself, which was, like, so amazing and cathartic for me, because, like, I thought I was the only one that felt like, and I knew I wasn't the only one, but, like, in my head I never, like, talked about how it felt, like, good to kind of manipulate boys, and, like, it made me feel better about myself. And, like, the way you kind of get to the core of, like, how young girls and the teenagers, like, deal with that was so amazing. And I'm sorry I'm rambling. It's just, like, hard for me to, like, put it into words, like, how important that is. Like, how important that was to me to, like, and you're so brutally honest. Like, you say things about yourself that, like, are kind of cruel, it feels like. But, like, I respect that you have that kind of power of, like, self-reflection. Because
self-awareness, for sure.
Self-awareness. And, like, I'm getting emotional. I apologize. Because, like, I never wanted to think about myself like that. And it was so refreshing to see someone being like, I did a lot of fucked up shit as a kid, but, like, it's part of who I am, and, like, I need to talk about it.
Totally. I think so much about it is about not only being honest to who you were and what the things that the ways that we used to act, but also this self-forgiveness and self-awareness of, like, it's okay. You know, I definitely wanted to be really honest to the way that I acted and to the people that I hurt. But I also recognized that I was a very mentally ill teenager with a lot of problems. And I need to look back at that and forgive myself, because I was ultimately doing the best in the only way I knew how to survive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, that's what I like too, because you're like, I don't know, it feels like a good thing that a lot of, like, I think younger girls should understand, like, sometimes you just need help, and like what you're doing feels wrong, but like maybe it's not as wrong as you think it is, and like don't like beat yourself up over it. I don't know.
And the power to forgive yourself.
Yeah. Were you ever worried about being so brutally honest about yourself in this book?
I was never worried about it. I think that it was definitely difficult. Like, I wrote a lot of the book at night just because I found it a lot easier to be vulnerable in the middle of the night alone when everyone was sleeping. Definitely cried a lot while writing it.
Fair. Valid.
But I think, you know, this is the story that I wanted to tell. This is the work that I want the book to do. I mean, it's so touching to hear that you saw, you know, parts of yourself in the book and felt seen by them, because that's ultimately, I wrote the book for myself. I wrote the book for the younger me that needed this book. And so I had to be completely honest, even if it made me uncomfortable, even if it made me feel really vulnerable and raw.
Yeah. And I think this should be like required reading for at least like high school students. I know it's like, people might think, oh, it's too pornographic and like air quotes, but like it's so honest, and I think a lot of younger girls would benefit from like being able to see that kind of raw portrayal and like openness about sexuality and not feeling shame.
I mean,
or
I
don't know.
No, thank you for saying that. And I mean, I agree to some extent. I think that like part of the problem is that arise around, you know, that I felt, at least as a teenager especially, was that like I was simultaneously being pressured to have sex and then also told, do not have sex, you know, protect your virtue. And you just feel completely confused and completely torn apart because you don't understand what you're supposed to be doing, and you want to be good and you want to live, you know, a good life and please those around you. But at the same time, you're getting so many mixed messages, and everything is just so coded in this sense of shame and insecurity. And I think the more that we talk to everyone, especially teenagers, about sex just openly as a matter of fact thing. It doesn't have to be graphic. It doesn't have to be exotified. It can just be a matter of fact thing, because that's what it is. I think that will do a lot of work towards making it less hard to kind of come into your sexuality, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what going back to Cam for a moment, what made you decide to frame the story of Cam as like a horror story as opposed to just telling a drama?
I mean, first and foremost, I love horror. And I think I love horror because horror is this incredible way to bring audiences inside an experience that is completely foreign to them. And that can be like obviously supernatural or, you know, sci-fi or whatever, but when you're scared with a character, when you're rooting for a character, when you're feeling their fear, you're creating empathy. You're building empathy. And I thought, you know, we thought a lot about doing a documentary at first, and then also, you know, maybe a drama, maybe some other type of story. But I really, really wanted the audiences to be in her shoes, rooting for this sex worker and rooting for her to go back to sex work. I wanted them to feel that loss of agency. I wanted them to feel that loss when her career gets taken away from her. And I thought horror was the only place I had ever seen that really done before. That was the best genre for it.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. I completely agree. And the thing that that struck me back when I first saw it, and then I started thinking about it again this last month, is the impermanence of online identity. Because like I had just over the last few weeks, one of my friends on Twitter, she has like an After Dark Twitter account, and she kind of makes a little bit of a side hustle money on the side doing kind of like cam girl type stuff, right? And then she discovered that her pictures were being used by an escort service, and so it was like that's troubling for multiple reasons. And And then another one of my writer friends that is not involved at all in sex work, but had their work plagiarized and like just posted all over on other sites, claiming it as theirs. And it kind of struck me back to this idea of the identity in cam and how difficult it is to be able to control yourself once you're online, because someone else can just easily just like in cam take over your persona and use it to their own benefit. And I just thought that was a very interesting way of framing that kind of transcends even just the typical story that's being told there. You know what I mean?
Totally, absolutely. And I think, that's so much what it is like at the end of the day, Lola is this manifestation of this digital identity getting away from you. And it, again, is drawn directly from experiences that I talk about in my book of having this porn pirated and taken away from me, and how violating and alienating that can feel. And again, I think that's super relatable to anyone that exists online. Even, we've all had like a tweet stolen or a photo stolen, or, someone's used our photos on Tinder, and it can feel not only violating, but also just extremely surreal to feel disconnected from your own image in that way.
Yeah, it can be so invasive, and like that was part of your book that really like made me feel so uncomfortable and so like nervous for you, but you're the character, you're the person you're writing about in the book, because when the videos started being spread throughout Pornhub and stuff, and I'm like, man, it's so easy to not be able to control what you put out there, but yet you need to put out there to make your money and like to get your presence. But then some random person can just steal it and, propagate it all throughout the internet.
Totally. And I think like just if anyone's listening who wants to know how to help that, something that I always like to say is like pay for your porn. Because when
guys pay for your porn,
pay for your porn,
pay for your porn, please, everybody.
Do it. Please. It's cool. It's so cool. I think it's really funny that we've kind of created a society where it's somehow seen as more shameful to pay for porn than to consume stolen content.
Yeah.
But I think that like if you're watching stolen porn, you are harming sex workers, and
yes,
that's
I
just
completely
a fact.
agree.
Yeah.
It's something
porn.
that like
sorry.
Yes, please do. It's something that like I've really kind of grown into as I started like learning more about sex work. That it like you said, it's so important because you are basically enjoying someone else's work and taking from them their ability to continue to exist, live with their finances and stuff. It's just it's pay for your porn, people.
The moral of this episode is pay for your porn.
Exactly.
So you mentioned you're a horror fan. Have you always been a horror fan?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on horror. My godfather is actually Larry Cohen.
Wow.
Yeah, so I read low key. I actually read a lot of his scripts. That's kind of how I know how to write a script. Is that,
oh my god, that's so cool.
That's amazing.
Casual, whatever, it's fine.
I know he saw Cam and he really liked it, which was super. I'm really happy before
awesome.
He died. Yeah, he got to see it. So that was incredible. But yeah, no, I mean, I've been a big fan of horror for a long time. I even, even just the little books, like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And
I
love
I was a big fan growing up. Yeah.
Awesome.
I had a quick question. Sorry, going back to the to the Cam girl. Did you have to reach out to any of the people you mentioned before you wrote it? Because I know you changed names and you used a lot of screen names, but did you have to tell any of them that you were gonna talk about them in your book?
So, no. I mean, it was really important to me for this book that this book be about me. And for that reason, I did change all of the names except my own. Okay. And I really wanted to write from memory, too, which is the other thing, Okay. I didn't go back and, rewatch all of my shows or, look things up because for me, it was kind of like an experiment with memory and with kind of what mattered most to me and what left lasting impressions. Because obviously in a memoir that takes place over 2 years, there's so much that there wasn't room for.
Yeah.
But it was actually really kind of easy to figure out what actually mattered to the story, because that ultimately is what mattered to me and what I remembered most clearly too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure, like, the way you were. I don't know, like, because I know you also are still in contact with quite a few of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Cool.
am. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So how are you and it's Dan? Is it Gold Haber?
Gold Haber, yeah.
So how did you two meet, and will you guys continue to work in the future? I know you are working on Quibi, 50 States of Fear.
Mm-hmm. We met in high school, actually.
Okay.
We worked in high school, yeah. Cool. We ran a theater company. Well, he ran a theater company. I tried to run a theater company with him. We worked together from a young age. You know, I would like PA his short films, hurting people
awesome.
off sidewalks. And we're still working together. We have a couple of features that we're working on right now, and then the 50 States of 50 States of Fright now.
Oh, Fright.
Yeah,
oh, my
I think
bad.
they changed
Sorry.
the name.
Okay.
No, it's okay. They've changed it a couple times. So, yeah.
And so for our listeners that might not be familiar with it, can you talk a little bit about it? I know you guys are doing one called, is it Red Rum?
It's called Red Rum. Yeah. So it's
I love it.
Thank you. It's based on the 50 states of America. So each state has its own episode. Ours is Colorado. That's the state where we both grew up.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know, what can I say about it? It has Christina Ricci in it, which is crazy awesome.
That's wild.
And I don't think I'm allowed to tell you really anything else. But
okay, fair.
It's with Sam Raimi. It's Sam Raimi's the kind of EP on the show. So
So are they like they're short? Are they short films? Is that how it?
They're short form content, but
okay.
Are yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want you to say things you can't. I know because Quibi. Is it Quibi? Is that
Quibi? Yeah, Quibi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it seemed I was trying to do a little bit of research into them, and it seemed like they're focused on like things that you could watch in like one sitting type thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And you mentioned that you have a couple of features maybe in the works. Are you going to stay in the horror genre, do you think?
Both of those are horror thriller. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's my happy place. I love it here.
Yay! Cool. So we've talked a lot about Cam and Cam Girl, but do we want to talk about what we've watched recently, Terry?
Yes, please.
Cool. Terry?
Okay.
What have you been watching?
Well, I've been a bad boy, and I haven't really watched a whole lot because I've been playing this game that's on the PlayStation called Death Stranding.
Yes.
And it is such... And do you play games at all, Issa?
Sorry, I was drinking coffee and muting
Oh,
myself.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I'm just like shoving my coffee down my throat. No, I do not.
Oh, you do not?
No,
okay.
not really,
It's so this guy, Hideo Kojima, he's a really big person in like video game development, and this is his like first game free of the shackles of like working for someone else, and it feels that way. It's very odd. It's simultaneously boring and exciting and brilliant at the same time. I know you've been kind of like on the kind of fence about it, Mary Beth.
Yeah, so I have been like, I've been excited for this game because it's like, it seemed very horror-esque, and like a lot of the video games I like to play are horror games, and so I was like super hyped because Kojima was supposed to do another Silent Hills movie, but Silent Hill video game called, and there was like the playable trailer PT, and I was so excited, and then I got Next, and I was very sad, so I got very excited for this,
same.
But then people keep saying it's kind of boring, but like I kind of like boring games sometimes, so I don't know.
It's very methodical in the way that it's presented, and I think I think for some people it'll be like their favorite game of the year, and other people will be like, I don't understand what this is. But the thing that I love the most about it is that it's about kind of reconnecting America after this kind of apocalyptic event that decimated America. And so you're moving from the East Coast to the West Coast, and you're trying to connect the world again. And they do that by having this kind of online component where like stuff that other people do in their world will show up in yours. So like if they've built a bridge to help cross over this like uncrossable area, it will show up in your world and you can like it. And by liking it, it's sort of like, Facebook, you'll start to see more stuff from them in your world, and you've kind of like connecting people in a way. And that aspect of it is so fascinating to me. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing, is sinking way too many hours into it.
Cool.
What about you, Mary Beth? What have you been watching?
I've also been terrible about watching movies due to my new job and the exhaustion of trying to figure out how to be an adult with a full-time job and a social life. So I've been watching a lot of the new HBO show Watchmen. Issa, are you familiar with Watchmen? Do you like Watchmen?
Vaguely. Have not.
Okay,
watched,
cool.
Yeah.
So the show is like basically, it takes place, I think, 30 years after the graphic novel, and I have a Watchmen tattoo. I wrote my undergrad thesis on Watchmen. Like, I am obsessed with Watchmen, and so I was very hesitant about the show because a lot of the content they've made after the graphic novel is like trash. So I was very hesitant, but this show slaps. Like, I tweeted the other day, Watchmen rips, like in all caps with like 600 exclamation points. Sorry.
I've been meaning to try to get into it. I haven't started it yet. I have this like thing where it's like I want to binge something, but then I also don't want it to get spoiled before I binge it.
Yeah.
So like I'm kind of in that awkward place where I really want to dive into it, because I think Damon Lindelof is I think he's done bad. Like, I think the internet has done him wrong, and so like I have a feeling that down the line his work is really gonna get heralded.
I mean, like, the one problem I have is that he doesn't know how to end things, so I'm very curious to see how they're going to end this, but, like, I hope he just goes, like, full crazy bullshit, because, like, spoiler alert, the original Watchmen graphic novel ends with a giant alien squid being transported into the middle of New York City and, like, destroying millions of people.
Oh my God.
So I am wanting, like, a batshit crazy, like that kind of thing, and they're already leaning into it because alien squids rain from the sky on like a regular basis, and it's like part of daily life. That's not a spoiler, it's just like a little thing. So they're leaning into like the nuts shit from the graphic novel, so I'm just hoping they go like whole hog into it. The soundtrack is also really, really good, and
Trent Reznor.
Yes, it's so good. And then Regina King is the main, like, the protagonist, and Jesus Christ, like, why has she not been in more action movies or action shows? Because she kicks so much ass.
I love her.
She's so good. So I've been loving that a lot. Issa, have you watched anything recently that you want to talk about? Or that you've been enjoying? Anything you've been enjoying? It doesn't even have to be new. Like, it could just be like something you revisited.
Yeah, I mean, the most recent movie that I just watched on the plane yesterday. I rewatched Raw.
Oh my God.
Yes. We love female cannibals.
So freaking good. Like,
it's such a good movie.
It's such
really
a good
is.
movie. It's gorgeous. It's creepy. And like, it just, yeah. I had seen it once before and then just hadn't watched it in a couple years. And then I was just like, I need to see this again. And it just blew my mind again, just right away. It's a pretty incredible movie.
What a plain movie, though.
Yeah.
Like, someone looks over, like, what in the hell? And you're like, don't worry about it.
She's
it's
like
fine.
gnawing on someone's thigh. Like, it's fine, guys.
It's fine. It's normal.
Fine. That's such a sexy movie, though. It's weird to say that about a movie that's about, like, you know, cannibalism and stuff, but like, I found that myself oddly like turned on while watching it, and I think the guy, I don't know what the actor's name is or what the character's name is, it's been a while, but the guy that's I think he's either gay or bisexual in it. Mm-hmm. He's so attractive.
I totally agree, and I love that he's such an important queer character because he's really a foil to the protagonist, to Justine, who's like so repressed and so shy and so unable to even confront her own anything about herself. And then here's this, queer guy who's just totally liberated and in your face, and it's just such an important contrast, I think.
It is.
As she's kind of like going through this self-discovery.
Absolutely.
Well, have you guys seen Trouble Every Day?
No, I've been wanting to see that.
Okay, that's another sexy cannibal movie. It's like Claire Denis, who did High Life and like all these other weird movies. She's amazing, but it's basically like these people, when they have sex, they want to eat people.
Oh wow!
It's so good. It kind of makes no sense in like a Claire Denis kind of way. It's like raw. It's like French and sexy and gross, but you can't stop watching it. So if you like.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say I love that, and I feel like there's a way to do cannibalism that's kind of sexy, and I think the French are nailing it.
Yeah, and then there's In My Skin, which I haven't seen, so I don't know how sexy it is. But she like the French and cannibalism, like I don't get it, but I love it. So I don't know, it's weird, but whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah, I need to rewatch Raw, because it's been a while. I think it's been since it first came out that I've seen it. So I'm gonna write that down, that I should go rewatch that, because it's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Well, speaking of, I don't even know how to connect Raw and Saw, except they rhyme. Perfect. They rhyme.
Yes.
Anyway, now that I've spoiled it, Issa, what movie did you bring with you today for us to talk about?
Saw.
Yay! So before sorry, what were you gonna say?
So before we get into your experience with it, we sometimes do like this little synopsis. It's kind of like a fun thing to like bring people up to speed. So this is what we have for this. Adam, Leigh Whannell, and Dr. Lawrence Gordon, Carrie Elways, wake up chained in a dark room, and no, this isn't my Prince Wesley BDSM fantasy come to life. It's a game set up by the sadistic Jigsaw, Tobin Bell. That's a spoiler. The two men don't know each other or why they're there, supposedly, but people die, stomachs get punctured, and Jigsaw puts them through an escape room scenario that today people would actually pay good money for. By the end, Lawrence fights bad acting, which isn't necessarily his fault, and cuts off his foot, while Adam, he kind of also fights bad acting and gets locked in the dingy room to perish. It's revealed that the dead man lying between them isn't so dead and is in fact the organizer of the festivities. Game over indeed. So, Issa, how old were you when you saw this, and why did it affect you so much?
Yes. Okay, so I can't remember if I was 14 or 15, but I think I was like 9th or 10th grade, and it was kind of this movie that, I liked horror, but I liked kind of ghost stories and fairies and like, supernatural things. I had never really seen like a serial killer movie. And there were some kids that were, really cool, like way cooler than me. And they were also like a bunch of like gay girls in this group. And I was just like coming into my queerness. And I was like, I really want you guys to like me. So I'm going to watch this movie. And I did not want to watch it. And it, oh my God, it messed me up. Like I remember getting home and, my friend's mom dropped me off. And I remember just bolting from the car like into my front door and just slamming it shut behind me, like so viscerally terrified of that movie. Yeah.
Wow.
I just like this movie also viscerally terrified me. I think I saw it. I didn't see it right when it came out because it came out when I was I think I was in middle school, but I watched it. This was like a movie I didn't see in theaters, movie, like a DVD experience. And I actually saw Saw 2 first. I don't know why that was the order in which I watched them, but I think it was because I didn't really want to see the first one because I didn't like the idea of torture porn at that point in my life. But then my stepdad, who like I'm very close with, wanted to watch Saw 2. And so we had this tradition where we would like make grilled cheeses and watch horror movies at night. So he was
cute.
like, I know. he was like, let's watch Saw 2. And I said, all right, cool, let's do it. Fuck that movie. It is the only horror movie to ever make me almost vomit because I have an absolutely awful fear of needles.
Oh yeah.
And when she is thrown, I'm like getting like kind of like nauseous thinking about it right now. Like it was the worst. I sprinted out of my living room into our bathroom and like put my head between my legs. Oh. I was like, fuck this movie. I hate it so much. So then I didn't want to see Saw for a long time. And then I finally saw it and was like, this is so fucking disturbing. Like, why are we watching this movie? Like, it just like so deeply disturbed me. And I actually haven't seen any of the other ones since. But like, this movie just kind of got into my head and just freaked me out so badly. So I'm so glad you wanted to talk about it because this movie is like, makes me so uncomfortable.
So, what scenes do you remember that really like affected you when you first saw it, Issa?
I mean, I think what was the scariest part to me and like what left a lasting impression, like obviously just like the brutality of like cut your own foot off or, you know, kill this guy to save yourself. But more than that, which stuck in my head was just the psychology of Jigsaw. Fucked me up. Like the idea that there was someone who could be watching you and know what you were feeling. And like I mean, as you both know, you read my book, I was a pretty depressed teenager and I definitely thought about suicide a lot. I dealt with self-harm. And for me to have the possibility that there was someone out there who would kind of take advantage of that and trap you and try to teach you a lesson about, you know, there's just that moment when at the end he says like, are you grateful for your life now? Or like, are you grateful for being alive? And it just got to me. Like, I remember there were moments where I was like in the hallway talking to a friend, you know, bitching about something. And I'd say, God, I just want to fucking die. And then I'd be like, but not really, because life is great.
Not really,
I
love
it. If you're listening, Jigsaw, I promise I love my life.
I appreciate it wholeheartedly. I swear to God, please don't come for me.
Yeah, like for real though, for real. Like I was so scared of that.
Yep.
Wow. And see, like it's I love that this conversation is happening because again I'm 38, so like I was a different age when this movie came out, and I remember so I had a different perspective with it because I remember I was a big film nerd at the time. I mean, I still am, obviously.
I was going to say, are you not now?
No, I'm not. I don't know what I'm here. I'm a poser.
Hates movies.
Hates them. Can't believe I'm here talking about them. No, but when it came out, there was like so much anticipation and hype before it hit, because like it was something different than what had come, because, you know, from the 90s, like this came out in 2004, so we're coming out of the 90s like teen horror cycle where it was like basically slashers and stuff, right? And so then this new thing came out, and it was like they were calling it immediately torture porn and like comparing it almost to like a snuff film without the actual snuff happening. And so like there was this incredible hype building up. I remember freaking myself out so bad before this movie even came out that I was blogging about it on LiveJournal. I mean, that kind of
hell yeah.
Yes.
And like, because it like, I was like, oh God, what is the difference between this and a snuff film? I mean, I know people don't die, but what is the difference? Where is it going to go from here? Like, I just remember being so completely freaked out, and then watching the movie and being like, oh, this isn't so bad. I mean, it was terrifying, and it was, you know, it definitely played more with like the anticipation of some of the stuff, but I didn't think it was as bad as I was led to believe it was going to be. And so that kind of like, it was such a weird, it was like my first experience with like the hype machine that gets built up among some movies that we see now, like with a lot of A24 movies where they're like scariest movie ever, and then people get disappointed in it because it's not. So it's interesting to me to see these different like interactions and reactions with it based on, you know, where we were in life at that time.
Yeah, and like I think it was also like, I can't say for sure, but it was one of the very first movies that was part of the torture porn genre.
Yes,
and like that was such a big deal because I've done like nerdy amounts of research into like post 9/11 horror and like how torture porn emerged out of like this nihilistic sense of like everything is fucked. So like, what do we even do now? So now these movies come out that are just basically like you said, torture porn, and so it is like fascinating all of our own reactions to, like, an introduction to that genre. Because, like, do you guys still watch torture porn movies? Like, would you consider yourself fans of that kind of movie?
I mean, I'm definitely not.
Okay.
No. And to be fair, I never was. Like,
yeah, fair. I mean, like, fair enough.
I definitely watched all of the Saw movies with that same group of girls that I really wanted to like me. But it had nothing to do with the movies. And I don't... Yeah, just torture in general really, really gets to me.
Issa, was it worth it, though?
You know what? I did get to make out with them, one of them, a few times. So I would say yes.
That's a win.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I would say yes. Yeah.
There was at least a little bit of a reward at the end of that fucked up torture
held
tunnel.
hands with one of the girls. We held hands for the entire second Saw movie. It was really cute.
Aww.
So, you know.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Yay, Saw. Encouraging gay love?
I don't know. I mean, they were the cool kids, and this was the cool movie. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
The cool, the counterculture cool. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I know. The girls, you were like, I want to be like you, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating though that like that decade was so permeated by this kind of horror with, you know, the Saw movies. I don't think the first Saw movie, I don't necessarily consider it torture porn too much. I think it's more of like it felt more like a thriller. I realize that now watching it the second. I mean, it's been probably a good decade since I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
But like I realized how much of like a twisty thriller it really is, and it's like this. It's always the second movie and the third and the fourth, and gosh, there's like 8 of them now. That like really started to amp up and focus more on that kind of the torture-y aspect of it.
I feel like it's always. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm saying it feels like it's always paired up with Hostel, because Hostel came out the next year,
Yes.
and that movie is a fucking nightmare.
Yes.
So it's just like I feel, and like you said, I feel like people don't. I definitely didn't remember like the kind of detective work aspects of that movie. I was like, oh yeah, this is just like cutting off feet.
Yeah, I did remember. The one moment I did remember was when he gets up off the floor.
Oh god, that was like
that moment
screaming,
seared in my brain. Just like out loud, like, oh my god, I did not see that coming.
No, I didn't either. And what I mean, you can see that James Wan is a talent to be reckoned with in this movie, because it was filmed in 18 days, and there's
holy shit, it was 18 days. That's
18
impressive.
days.
Yeah.
And part of the problem with like some of the acting, because like the acting towards the end with Carrie Elways after he like cuts his foot off, and like the drama leading up to it is a little rough on this viewing for me, but like it was all rehearsal footage. Like they didn't have time. They filmed all of Danny Glover's scenes in like 2 days. Like it just, everything was just pretty much, they had to rush. And when you think about how big the movie actually is, because it's not, in my mind, it was just the two of them in this room. And there was like a little bit of that police work, but a lot of the movie takes place outside of that room.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does have a whole larger scope to it. And I think it's really well done, honestly. And the way the twists and the reveals kind of layer on top of each other, where you're never quite sure what's actually real, I think is pretty incredible, especially in the third act when it all just starts unraveling and you're just like, wait, what?
Like, what have I been watching this whole time? What is happening?
It's so much more than just two people stuck in a bathroom.
And it plays with time a whole lot, because like I don't remember how, like, I was watching it and it had been like a decade, and I was like, oh, there's these two cops. Oh, wait, that's in the past. Oh, wait, how long ago was that? And just the way that it kind of plays with expectations and that, and then leads up to, like you said, the scene where he gets up off the ground, and what a perfect mix of like sound design, that score, that sound that like is now seared in my mind with Saw, that da-da-dun, da-da-dun, da-da-dun. And it's so creepy and well done.
Can we also talk about how nasty that fucking bathroom is?
Oh my god. I literally wrote down that I can smell that bathroom through the screen. Like I literally wrote that down in my notes.
You can. It's so gross.
I think like, so I have OCD, and like I sometimes like, I'm not necessarily like, a lot of my like OCD like compulsions don't necessarily manifest around like cleaning, but when I watch movies like that, like all like my like compulsive thoughts can think about is like germs and bacteria. Like, so dorky and like so like dumb, but all I can think about is like, you have an open wound, you're going to get an infection.
You're reaching into
you
that
need
toilet.
to get you need to get antibiotics. You are going to get infected, which is like so silly to think about that. Like when I was watching Crawl, the alligator movie from the summer, all I could think about was like, you are going to get a nasty staph infection. You are swimming around in flood water. It's like so weird, but like all I can think about.
Okay,
is,
I relate to that though, because that's honestly what I think about too.
Thank you.
All
oh my
the
god.
time. Yeah, no, like for real. And it's so dumb because it's like, no, they're just gonna die like for other reasons way sooner than this infection would set in. But my brain is just like, get some Purell. Get some Purell.
Cover that up. Look for the red streaks. Is it hot to the touch?
That's so funny.
Real world logic is like, which is like, shouldn't be applied, but just anyway, that's
So the two scenes that like stuck out to me this time were, I think, incredibly effective with building tension. Was the two scenes where they have the flashbacks of them being kidnapped.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So like the first one with Dr. Gordon, he's like on the phone, and you see that kind of mirror above him showing the car with the door opening up, and this weird pig-faced person climbing out the back. I mean, did that get you guys at all?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was.
I mean, like, I don't know what else to say. Yeah.
Yep. Scary. And then what really worked, I thought, was Adams in the dark apartment, and that all he had to illuminate is that camera and that sound that kind of like reminded me a bit of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that like when he's taking photographs. That moment,
so creepy, and so I just think so invasive. Like there's something about getting the backstories where you understand like just how long these people have been watched by him, and just how intimately he knows everything about them.
Every
that
detail
really got to me. And you saw it in that scene where he's in their house, and you know, or like even with the daughter where she's like, oh, it's the man from the closet.
Oh my god.
And you're like, how long has he been in her closet for? Like, this is the most terrifying thing.
Again, one of this movie like taps into all of these fears I have, because like I also get terrified that my Uber drivers are like recording where I'm living and going to murder me. So like, again, not rational, but like that kind of thing makes me think about it, and like that's why this movie gets to me in like a level of like watching me and like noting my every move and like getting used to my routines, and that just like freaks me out so much. And like, so the part with the daughter, like the daughter saying that's like man in my closet. So my dad's dad, my grandpa, has like a really shitty track record of showing his grandchildren really scary movies at very awful and like awful ages. Like he showed me Jaws when I was 4, and that ruined my life. And then he showed my cousin Caroline, who is 17 now. He showed her Saw, and that caused more controversy than Jaws for a lot of like obvious reasons. But she wouldn't like her. She was terrified of her closet. Like they were like, oh yeah, just babysit her, and like for like he thought that turning on. He said his claim was he couldn't find the remote and didn't know how to change the channel, so we just like let the my 4-year-old cousin watch Saw.
Oh my
god!
And
she was scarred for life.
Yeah,
I was like, Jaws is nothing compared to Saw. Good God.
Terrifying.
Anyway, yes.
Terrifying.
Well, I think it also, like, what we're talking about kind of points to the way that he uses a lot of childhood fears in this movie. I mean, there's the creepy clown doll that's, like, rolling out on its own. There's, like, the man in the closet with the, you know, the girl. And then there's this idea of being, like, watched constantly. It's really effectively using different types of horror to, like, keep you on edge the entire time.
Totally. And then the way that he gamifies it. Like, it's a game. Like, you can survive if you do something horrific. And that makes it... I don't know. There's something about how it's just a game that is also somewhat childlike and really preys on those, like... Because you start rooting for them. You're like, oh my god, just do it. And then you realize you're rooting for someone to do something absolutely awful.
Yes.
And it's really crazy how it plays with you like that.
And I think the scene that really exemplifies that is Amanda with the reverse bear trap on her head, and she has to like cut the guy open that's alive. You know, and it's like you have to do something so horrible just to save yourself. But can you imagine being in that situation?
I was just gonna say, like, I was thinking about that. I was like, I don't even know what I would do. Like, I can't even fathom being in that situation and like being that desperate to survive. Like, I can't even.
And then at the end, when she says he helped me or he saved me,
oh my god,
she's like, he saved me, and that just got to me. I was like, oh god,
oh no,
yeah. I was like, no.
Yeah, that kind of digs into like the whole idea of like Stockholm syndrome, and you know, she becomes like such a important character in the next movie.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That. Oh my god, isn't she a pretty big character in the rest of the franchise?
I think so. You know,
I can't. I haven't seen. I have only seen the first two, so I don't. I just know from like seeing stuff online that she kind of becomes like a pretty integral part of the entire, or at least a decent chunk of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
I honestly can't remember.
Yeah,
like,
I know she's pretty big for a couple more. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
I think she died in the third
We're like,
one.
no.
I've blocked it out.
Fair.
Like, I was trying to remember. I think I've seen maybe like 6 of the 8 that are out, but like they at some point they all just sort of blur together.
Yes.
That it's kind of. I think the first 2 are really good. And everyone keeps saying that the 6th one is actually surprisingly decent in its critique of the healthcare system.
Oh,
and I'm like, because like I was tweeting about this earlier, and Trace Thurman, one of the horror queers, he was like, 6 is surprisingly good. It's about the healthcare system, and I was like, is it? Because they all just sort of blur together at some point. But it's still really popular because there's going to be another movie that Chris Rock wrote the story for.
Called The Organ Donor.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
That's coming out next year, so we have that to look forward to.
Cool.
I can only imagine what it will entail. Hopefully, donating organs. Forcibly donating organs.
Oh, yeah. Which is funny, because that is what Adam thinks is happening to them in the first scene of Saw.
Well, that's
He's
right.
like, oh, they took my organs.
Yeah, that made me laugh. Do you see like slices on me? Did they take out my kidneys? He's like, you would be dead.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Oh man.
Saw. Terry, is there anything else you want to talk about, or do we want to start maybe wrapping up? Or
I think I'm good. What about you, Issa? Is there anything else you wanted to mention about Saw?
Are you okay with
No,
that?
I mean, I think we covered it. You know, it's a terrifying movie.
It really is. All right.
I'm just thinking about the poster.
Yeah.
That, you know, the posters for each of those movies are just still so good.
They
Like,
are.
they're
I
just
do
very
like. They
effective.
definitely capture like the films pretty well, and even further, made me never want to see them because I was like, nope, dirty, gross, grimy,
Yeah,
icky.
They really
Grimy
do
is
grime.
like
all the movies do grime in such a good way.
I know.
Yes.
And I hate it and I love it at the same time. Anyway, that was one last thing because I was looking at the posters and I was like, these are so good and make me itch. Like, make me want to take a shower.
Right? Just
I remember-
looking at them, you feel dirty.
I know.
And I think I want to say it was it maybe the 4th movie that they actually had to change the poster and take them down because like they were showing like I think it was severed fingers or something. And
The second one was severed fingers.
Was it the second one? I can't remember which one it was, but there was like one where like they had the severed fingers and they couldn't show that it was like severed, so they had to like cut it differently again or something.
Oh,
I just remember
interesting.
like the posters causing controversy.
Yeah, because I was just looking at it because it's like the 2 fingers with the nasty ass fingernails.
Yeah. Ugh. So gross.
Anyway.
Well, thank you, Issa, for joining us to talk about Saw. So where can our listeners find you, and what do you have coming up?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, first of all. This was super fun.
Yay.
Y'all are awesome. People can find me online. I'm at Issa is Wrong on social media. And, I mean, my next thing is my book. So, you know, buy my book. It's great. I also have an audiobook where I read my book, which is pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter you were talking about faking a British accent. Is that correct?
There is
Did I
a
read that right?
chapter in which there is a part where I fake a British accent, and it is horrific. And, yeah, that's a special treat for the Audible listeners out there.
That's awesome. Yes, it is on Audible, and I have already ordered it because I wanted to listen to it on my commute.
Awesome. So, listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. What has been your experience with Saw, either the first movie or the franchise? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, and we might feature you in an upcoming episode. You could also reach out to us on Twitter. I'm at Mary Beth McG- or sorry, I don't even know my own Twitter handle. I'm at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, make sure to tag us at Scarred Podcast if you want to talk about us on Twitter.
And don't forget to please review, rate, and subscribe. It helps out more than you know.
Thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to Steve Barnold for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our amazing theme song. Stay creepy, everyone.
And until next time...
When you pick up some scratches, cause you want a fun break, the playful way you scratch is the next choice you should make. You can make your dog's leg kick and scratch with that. You could even grab a laser pointer and use your cat. You can build yourself a homemade scratching machine or use a piece from your chess set. Go ahead, grab the queen. Scratch like a DJ with your record player. A cactus could scratch off that scratchable layer. Cause when it comes to scratching, there's a million playful ways. Thanks to scratchers from the California Lottery, a little play can make your day.
Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase, play, or claim.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.